Hi guys, welcome to this Excel lunch camp. So what is a lunch camp? Well, as part of our business analyst consultancy that we have at Waveolution, we go to a lot of client sites and just sort of provide solutions for them. More often than not, they're within Office, Microsoft Office, and specifically within Excel. And a lot of questions we get asked is, how did you do that? The purpose of this Excel lunch camp is think of it as you're the client, we've come in, we've done some work, and we want to show you how we've done it. We come from a development background, so we're quite lazy at documentation. We don't like doing that. So rather than write it down or put it in a book or a document, we'd rather just show you and sort of do it that way. So this video helps us to translate that and transfer that knowledge to you guys, the viewers, sort of quickly as possible. As such, no great grand production system here. You can see it's just me sort of down here, wherever I am, umming and ahhing, just chatting to you as if you were the client. We've got a couple of coffees in our hand, maybe a nice salad. Whatever we've got, we're just going to chat over a 15-minute period and I'll show you how I've done something. So this is specifically about Excel charts. It's a first in a series. So let's go and have a look at what we want to try to cover off. So what I want to do is take this set of data that we've got, and it's looking at a very fictitious situation of we've got some divisions that we've broken down a data set, a financial data set. We can see that we've got a financial budget for the full year, and we've got what the year-to-date actuals are and the year-to-date budgets are. And what we want to do is graph that, shown in a nice way. So now this could be any sort of data. It doesn't have to be financial data, it doesn't have to be anything. So you can sort of use some of the ideas and apply it how you wish to. So what we're trying to get to, what am I going to try and show you? What I want to show you is how we can get to something like this chart down here. So what we want to do is create a nice chart that's going to give us those three bits of information, the budget, the full year budget, and show where we are on that budget line in terms of our year-to-date actuals, and whether or not those actuals are going hot, burning, overrunning the prediction for the year-to-date budget, or if they're under. So we can see, for instance, Canada Enterprise. Here we've got it's £26,000 at the moment under the estimated budget that was year to date for this. So you can see that's listed up the top here. So we've got what the current items are. So for instance, Germany government is currently running over budget according to the year to date figures by about 32k. So we want to show something along the idea here. Yeah, there may be better ways that you want to present it, but we've got some nice ideas I want to show you how we can do and how we can get to these figures. So how are we going to create that? Well, let's go to our source. And what we're going to do is just create straight off a graph and then look at what we've got. So I'm just going to select these two items. I'm going to create country, select country and segment, and that's going to give us a nice bit of grouping that a lot of people aren't aware of. Normally they would do something, they would choose maybe the country and then they do the budget. They would select it that way and then they would insert a column graph. And they can see something like this, and they can see Canada, Canada, Canada. So that's all very well, but that's not what we want. What we want is we want to say it's Canada Channel Partners, Canada Enterprise, so that we can actually sort of see that sort of breakdown, however we've got it. So we'll do that by selecting two columns. Because they're text at the start of the selection we do, it knows it's going to do some sort of grouping. And now we're going to select budget. We're only going to take the budget to start off with, do exactly the same thing. Insert column, and we're going to take a stacked one. Let me just move this over here so we can see a little bit clearer what's going on. So you can see that we've got the information showing up in here, and we've got that grouping. So you can see that there's doing some sort of grouping. However, it keeps on repeating Canada, 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 France, France. How can we get rid of that? Well, that simply is a case of just going into that data and highlighting and removing those duplicates. So I'm just going to do that so you can see how you can get that sort of grouping done quite easily. So you can see now it's grouped Canada, France, Germany, Mexico. It's all doing very nicely. We've still got a problem with the United States of America. And that's one of the things I sort of tell clients all the way to do is try and keep your titles in charts as concise as they can be, even do abbreviations. So let's, for instance, do USA. So you can sort of do it that way. and then it looks all ready. But another option would be to, so for instance, France do FR, so you could use some other abbreviation as well. So that's a good technique to use. So you could also do that for here, channel partners, CP. So we've got something that's looking a little bit nice in terms of our grouping and our cluster, but what we want to do is we want to have the year-to-date actuals showing up on there. Now, a lot of people will do that in different ways. They could, for instance, let me just get rid of that and we'll start again. They could take the full data again, and then they choose all three of those bits of information, and then they do it as a column by itself, so they're all individual columns, and there's nothing wrong with that. As I say, there's multiple ways of doing this. We want to show you one specific thing just so that you can see exactly how it works, and let's just increase that up a bit. So you can see here we've got now we've got you've got the budget lines showing up in here. We've got what our current year to date is, and we can see how that relates to a year to date budget. Maybe that's good enough for you. I want to show you a slightly different way. What we want to do is we want to stack it. So how can we do that? Well, the first thing you're going to notice, if we do change that to a stack, everything's going to be on top of each other. So you can see here we've got budget, but that's our full year budget. And of course, that's not what we want. We want to go back, and if you have a look at the target, what we want to achieve is, you can see that this is in effect overlaying, that the year to date is overlaying on that. So how do we do that? Well, there's lots of ways you can do it. You could do it by putting it in a secondary axis underneath it. We're going to use a secondary axis in a slightly different way. But the way that we're going to do it is we're going to take this bit of information and we're going to change it. So we're going to make it into something that's a little bit more meaningful. So let's just move that down here for a second. And what we're going to do is we're going to add some extra columns. So this is a common practice in Excel, is if you want to create something, just think about how you want to section that, and then create some extra columns that might help you achieve that. There's nothing wrong with those extra columns if they show the workings on the analysis. And what are we going to put in there? Well, let me go to a little visual representation of how we want to achieve that graph. Here I've got two different items that we've got. So for instance, in this one, we've got a year-to-date actuals and year-to-date budget, and we've got a budget. So for both of these, they're £120. This one is currently year-to-date actuals at 90 compared to the budget of 80. So it's £10 over budget at the moment. This one is £10 under. So how can we represent that in a graph that we were seeing before? Well, let's just put in the budget. So let's say it goes up to here for the budget items. So here we can see all of our 120, how that's composed. And we've got the same thing going. Let's put the same thing over straight away on here. So this is just going to give you a visual representation of how we're going to make those calculations that we need to create the chart. And now we've got the budget of 80. So let's put in the budget of 80. So it goes up to 80. So let's put that in a different color. And they've got exactly the same thing showing up over here. So we've got our 80. Now what we want to do is we want to represent that this is £10 over budget. So in effect that's sitting there, and that's our £10 over. So you can see that the budget goes up to here, but we're £10 over it. And on this one we're £10 under. So this one will actually go on where, say, it goes up to here, but then we're currently running £10 under. So that is how we're going to represent it. And this is how we're going to build up those blocks. What we're going to do is we're going to have a stacked chart like this that's going to say this is our budget, and this is over, and then this is the remainder to the year to date. So we're going to build it up like this. And the same thing with the under. So we need to figure out what the variance is between the actuals and the budget, and then we'll build it up slowly. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in a variance, first of all, a year-to-date variance. That will just tell us whether it's running over or under. So we're just going to put in a column in here. Let's just make sure it's the same. So I'm just going to drag across, and I'm going to take formatting only. And now what we're going to do is literally say whether it's under and over. We're going to compare the budget with the variance, with the actuals. So we're just going to say equals, and we're going to click on this cell. That's the budget minus the actuals. So what have we got going on here? Let's drag that down. And we're going to make this a little bit clearer to see which ones are actually under or over. So I'm going to go on to the number. And then in the number, I'm just going to say for the negative ones, show that red. So you can see that these ones are over budget. So there's an adverse position to us. So that's good, but that's not really giving us, all that's telling us if it's which situation it's going to be, whether it's going to be showing on top of the budget or whether it's going to be showing under the year-to-date budget. So what we now need to do is we need to sort of separate those two. Let's separate those two. I'm overly sort of adding extra rows. You could condense this, as you'll see when you try it yourselves, but this will hopefully make it very clear. What we're going to do is a year-to-date over and a year-to-date under. Let's just drag that again across. Let me just use Format Painter. The mouse goes a little bit crazy when I'm sharing my screen. So again, if you double click on Format Painter, it will let you keep on painting, and Escape will stop that. So so here we go. As I said, it's going to be lots of. So now we've got the variance. What we want to do is separate the two of them. If it's an over, we keep it separate from if it's an under. So literally, it's just going to be an if statement. So if this is greater than 0, then we want to have that figure. Otherwise, we're going to have nothing. And drag that down. So you can see all these red ones are now showing up as the zeros, 0 positions. So that's giving us the amount. So that £1,740, that in effect is giving us that little bit of green that we need there. And we're going to do the same thing here for under. So, or rather, hang on, I've got these two the wrong way around. So this one is, so this one year-to-date variance is a positive value, so it's running under. So that's actually under. Here we go. Let's get it the right way around. And this one's our over. So do exactly the same thing. Whereas this one was looking to see if it was greater than 0. This one looking to see if it's under. So if this is less than 0, it's a negative value, it's a negative position that we've got, so we're running adverse to budget. What we want to do is we want to take that value. Otherwise, we take 0. So exactly the same thing. The only difference is the greater than, less than sign are showing differently. So here you can see that we've got these ones showing up where there's an adverse position for us. But the only problem is on a graph, we want that to actually be sort of a real positive number. So we're going to slightly change this, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the function called abs, the absolute value, which will mean it will ignore if it's a positive or negative, it just takes the value itself. And then let's drag that down. And you see all those negatives, when I release the mouse, will go to positives. So you can see that these ones now is showing me how big amount that is adverse to. So that's given us, if we go back to our visual representation, that's given us the block in here, that block, and it's given us that block. So we know the size of the prize. What we now need to do is, if this one is adverse, then this is going to be the full 80. So this one is over budget. So the year-to-date budget is fully allowed there. So if it's a red one, if it's an adverse position, it's running over, then we'd still use the full year budget. For this one, what we do is we need to use the year-to-date budget minus that amount, because the full year budget is 80, remember. Or the year-to-date budget, sorry, the year-to-date budget is 80. So what we need to do is say we're going to take that amount, but we're going to take this amount off it, and that will give us our bar to go up to there. So what we're going to do is we're going to say this is our year-to-date, call it whatever it is, year-to-date position. Adjusted. It's up to you what you call this. So year-to-date position adjusted. So we're going to have again an if statement. So if this is greater than 0. So if this is greater than 0, it means that our budget, that we're actually under budget. So what we need to do is we need to take that amount off of our budget. So what we need to do is we need to take our year-to-date budget and we need to subtract what is currently under the budget. For the position where it's not greater than 0, then what we need to do is we need to take just the year-to-date budget. Do we need to subtract anything? No, we don't, because it's sitting on top of it. So let's look at what that is. So if we look at this one, 985. So our year-to-date budget, our year-to-date budget is this amount. We've got £159 under. So what we're doing is we're saying to get to that point, remember that 80, 70 position, we go up to 19,985, and then on top of that we've got 159. Together, those two will equal, so if I just hover over them, you can probably see down in the bottom right corner there, it's still that 21,144 figure that we've got there. Let's go drag that down that we've got and look at the ones where they're different. So let's take this one here. Let me just make that a nice little color so we can sort of see it clearly that we're looking at. So on this one, so this one is a negative position. So what it's doing is taking the full year-to-date budget, because remember that year-to-date, that negative position sits on top. So what does that all mean together? Well, first of all, we've now got, so what it means now is we've now got a position where it will take this and this if it's in an adverse position, and it will take this to there if it's in a real position. What we now need to do is do that little bit left over. Now again, we need to factor in whether or not we've taken that full amount off. And we can do that in several ways. So this is going to be sort of the little bit left over to get to our full year budget. So this is our budget adjusted for graph. Let's just call it busted graph, budget graph. So it's up to you entirely what you call these things. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at what's left over. Well, we know that the budget is here. So in effect, what we need to do is we need to take this plus this off of this. So we're taking off the budget, the variance, or the sort of the net position that we've got here. So let's do that. So again, let's just, there's several ways you can do it. I'm actually going to still go with the if position. So if this is greater than 0, so if this is greater than 0, then what we need to do, so just think about it. So in effect, this is greater than 0, so this year-to-date is under. We're taking 2144. So what we're going to do is do the budget minus the year-to-date budget. If, however, it's not greater than 0, we've got the situation down here. So what we're going to do there, so if it was here, this one down here, then what we're taking is the year-to-date actuals. So remember, the year-to-date actuals are 3797 plus the 25320 is going to come to the 29. So in effect, we're taking the biggest one of the two. And so let's put that in there of being the budget minus the year-to-date actuals. And then that will give us the combined elements. So you can see for this one, so let's look at that again, just move that formatting only. So for this one, it's a negative position. So what it's doing is it's subtracting the biggest one, the 384, from here. In a positive position one, is taking the year-to-date budget off of this one. Let's try that a different way. Lots of ways to skin a sheep or a rabbit or wherever it is. So what we're going to do is do something a little bit easier. So that was using the if one. So we kind of explained our logic. Another way of doing it, and I'm just going to get rid of that one, is to use, it's going to take the budget minus the maximum value of these two. So it looks at those two, the year-to-date actuals and year-to-date budget, and it looks to see which ones are bigger, and it will use that one as the value. And that will give us exactly the same answers. So that's a lot easier, not using an if calculation. So you can see here, here's a little trick. If you hover over a section, we want to see what the value of that is. If I press F9, I can see what the value is. Make sure you hit escape, otherwise you'll enter that value in. So, so we can see here for this one, the maximum value is the 2114144, so it's taking that value. If we go down to this one, which was a negative position, it should take the actuals. So it's taking the 384. Now this one's got a lot of pennies in it. So you can see that's what we build up that section. Now together, these three positions have given us what we need to know to create that bar chart. And you can see that just to prove it to yourself. So if I look at the budget, the full budget, so it goes all the way up to, is down the bottom it says 1496941. So 1496. So if I just select that, and this one, and this one, and this one, it comes to the same. So those four together combined are going to be equal to our full budgets. So what we're going to do is we're going to use these four rows to combine to create that chart. So let's go back, let's delete the chart, and we're going to create it. So we select country segment again, and those last four positions, and hopefully it will sort of start becoming clear. Insert column, stacked. Now what have we got going on here? So because we've got rid of those items there, the blanks, it shows straight away a lot nicer. So here it's showing our budget figure, so you can see the budget graph. So that's a little bit left over, so that's good. The only issue we've got here, we've got the year-to-date position adjusted. That should actually sit on the bottom. Let's make it clear, make it very clear straight away. So what we're going to do is take the year-to-date over. So this is a bad position, so we're going to make this red. So we can just do that by turning it into red. And in effect, our good positions, we're going to make those green. So you can see those greens and reds. If we go back to the item that we wanted to do, what we're going to do is show those nicely, but they're going to be living on top of the year-to-date budget where we've got to. So let's do that. We're going to just change the order a little bit. So what we need to do is move the order a little bit. The easiest way to do that is right-click on the chart somewhere and do Select Data. You can also do that by, when you're in the chart, going into Design and Select Data. This will show you all of the different elements you've got making up, so we can see these four. And what we're going to do is reposition the year-to-date position, and we're going to just put it on the other side. So we're going to move it up and move it up one more, and OK. So now what you can see, it's starting to look like that. It's starting to look like we've got, so we can see that combined, these are sort of, this one, Germany government, is coming to sort of around the 550. Let's just see if that's true. So the 530 is coming to there. So it's coming up to the 530. It's showing us that it's going all right up to our year-to-date budget, but we're adverse by about 30k. So we've got something that's showing up quite nicely. Now let's just make it a little bit prettier. And how can we do that? Well, let's just go to here and then do Format Series. And what we're going to do is we're going to make this sort of gap width a little bit less. So you can see it's starting to get a little bit thicker. That's good. And we're just going to sort of make this so, make the colors a little bit different. So it's up to you entirely how you do this. So I'm just going to make this one a little bit darker. So it really shows us it's been used, and this one is going to be a little bit lighter. And now what we want is with the greens, to get that nice little trick that I did on here, you can see what we've done is to get that idea of it's actually something growing. What we've done is we've made these thicker. How have we done that? Well, the way that we've done that is literally just go to here and we've given it a thickness of line. So we've given it a line thickness and we've made that a little bit thicker. So if I make the weight around 6, you can see what's happened there. So, I mean, that gives a sort of a nice representation. You can also do that with here. So again, the same thing. What we need to do is make the line the same color and then make it a nice thick line. On the weight, I think we made it 6. So you can see how it's sort of showing up there nicely. And we need to do that with the red one as well, the adverse positions. So in effect, these ones are not in the same series. They're in 2 separate series sitting on top of each other. But of course, the green is 0 and the red is 0 when they're not applicable. So for the red, let's give it a nice weight of 6 as well. And the outline was red. So there you can see we've got a nice representation, going back to our idea here that we've got going on here. So you can see that we're really starting to get that look. I had the grid lines off. You can sort of take the grid lines off, on or off, however you wish. So we've got something that's really looking starting to good. But what we want to do is we want to know how big a prize that is. So one of the common things that people would do is they will add a data label. So let's just add the data labels. But the problem is you've got those on these little thin ones. It's not so easy to sort of show where they are. And this one's 0 because obviously we're looking at the green. We'd need to add in a data line for this one. And then you can see they're sort of sitting on top of each other. Now there's lots of tricks that you can do with that. You can hide those zeros by going, let's go and format the data labels. And what we're going to do is for the number, I'm going to choose a custom number. So you can see at the moment it's doing it as zeros. If I do 2 semicolons and then double speech marks twice, what that's going to do is we'll do that in a different session, the number formatting. First of all, it shows you the formatting for a positive number, a negative number, and a 0 number. So for zeros, I'm saying hide them as speech mark, which is in effect nothing. So the only thing you need to do there, which I didn't do, let's do that again, number. So let's change that. The quote, semicolon, semicolon, double quote, add. And now you can see that number disappeared. Now let's do the same thing. I'm going to go onto this red line. You can see there's a 0 there. Let's do exactly the same thing. Right click, format data labels rather, format data labels. And now on my number formatting, it's already in my list, so I don't need to add it. I can see it's there. And you can see as soon as I did that, it disappeared. Let's go back to general. You can see the zeros there. If I go to custom and choose that one, you can see it disappears. So you could do it that way and sort of make it a little bit better. But I'm going to show you another trick that is going to get all of these items showing up on the top and really showing that they're negative positions or positive positions. So how do we do that? And just to remind you, so I'm showing them all on the top here, and there you can see that we've got all the negative numbers and all the positive numbers, so the current position. So the way that we do that is we're going to create another column. So let's just bunch this up a little bit. So in here, what we're going to do is we're going to put an extra data series. So this is going to be our label series, and this is going to be our label text. Now the first thing we want to do is that we want to, formatting only, I'm going to put in just a single digit for these, 1, and I'm just going to put it into everything. Doesn't matter. Let's go now and add that to the graph. So I've selected the label as well, this called label, copy, and now I'm just going to click on the chart and do paste. What happens there? Now, it looks like there's nothing. You can see there's label here, so there is something in there, but I can't see it. Remember, it's on 1, so it's all the way down the bottom. So to get that, a nice little trick that I use a lot of the time is to go to format under chart tool. So I've selected the chart format, and now I can choose that data series. You can see series label, and you can see it's sitting on top because it's the last one added, it's sitting on top of everything. And now I'm going to go to format selection. So rather than sort of right clicking that, trying to sort of right click it and do format data series, another thing you can do is select it from the item here and do format selection. And what I'm going to do is say put it on the secondary axis. So what that's going to do is, instead of plotting on this line where it goes up to 600,000, I'm going to put it on the secondary series, and let's see what happens. Ugh, Don't worry, we're going to change that in a second. What we're going to do is change this to, we can keep it as it is, or we can just turn it into a line. Let's just change that into a line. I find that helps a lot easier. So what we're going to do is design, change type, and we're going to say it's a line. So you can see there's just this line showing up, and it goes to 1. What we're going to now do is make it appear on the top, format axis for that secondary axis, and now we're going to say that the maximum is fixed at 1. We don't want any of these sort of labels that we see, so we're going to make sure that our major tag label is none, and next to the axis we're not going to have any axis labels. See, it's hiding, and you can see it goes all the way to the top. Now, how does that help us? Well, what we can do now is we can change the add labels to that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to you can see there we've got it. You can see all the points labeled. So you could either sort of do a right click and add data labels, or you could go to here and do data labels. And what we want to do is we want to add center labels. That means it's going to put it into the center of that point. And now we're going to format them. So let's go to data labels, more label options. What do we want in there? Well, what we want is we want some text in there. At the moment, that's just showing the value. You can see there it's showing £1. So what we need that to show is whatever the value is, but let's not jump ahead of ourselves. Let's keep it as it is, go down and add now the next piece of the puzzle, which is going to be our label text. So this could be anything that you want it to be. So this could be, you could sort of have in here, for instance, for all of these ones where they're a positive, so where they're all positives, what I'm going to do is say, so if this one is, so if our year-to-date variance is a positive number, then it's going to be cool. Otherwise, it's going to be bad. So here, if we go down, you can see we've got all the ones that are identified in a good position or an adverse position. Obviously, you can put your own text, adverse, favourable, etc. So we can sort of do it that way. Now, how do we get those labels showing up on there? Let's go back to our chart. And what we're going to do is we're going to select the actual series itself. So you could either click on the line itself. You can see it's a little bit tricky to sort of click on that line. Or the other thing you can do is select it from here, format label. And what we've got is we've got the series information now. If you just sort of Google this, then you can see that the series is composed of the name of the series. So this is L1. So L1 is label. So that's why we're doing series label. And the next section there, the A2 to B17. So A2 to B17 is this one here. That's all of those label texts. But what we want this one to be for the secondary axis is we don't want it to be that, we want it to be this label text. And hit enter. Now what benefit does that give us? Let's go and change the data labels, format data labels, and instead of saying the value, that £1 that we've got, which is in for every one of these, we want it to be the category name. And there you can see those items. So what it's doing is it's taking the labels. To put that in perspective, well, if you did that with these ones, let's just try that with these labels and see what would happen. So let's put a category. So you can see Germany government, 31, da da da. So that gives us a sort of a nice way of adding labels. So because we've got two, it's separated by a comma. If we just remove the value, you can see it's got that. You can also put the series name in there. So year to date over, Germany government, value. So we obviously want the value in there still. So let's just go back to how it was. So we've got cool, bad, cool, 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 bad, but we want to get rid of that blue line. So let's just do that now. So we're going to go to label, format selection, and line color, we want no line. What have we got now? Something that's looking really good. So we can see it's a good position, good position, good position, bad position. And now it's up to you. I mean, what we can do is literally we can just say that this is the position. Let me just go down here. So what we can say is this is the year-to-date variance. We could just do something as simple as that. Scroll down. And now you can see it's got all of those items in there. So we've got all of those items that are showing up. So that is one way of doing it. But you could, of course, add extra text in there. Like we've got the ifs, the cool, bad. So we could say adverse 159 or you know, positive, sort of favourable 159. Or it's up to you, the text in there. So yeah, if you wanted to highlight something, you could, you know, on this specific one, you could do something. You can mix and match. So so that is one of the sort of good ways of sort of doing that. So let's just make that a little bit more readable. We're going to reduce the size of it so it's not sort of intertwined, so you can see something showing up a little bit better there. So you can see that we've got those labels showing up in there now. We've got the items in here. Let's get rid of those data labels. And we also need to get rid of the data labels on the red one. So we've got something that's looking very similar to this now. So all we need to do really now is just look at the chart. We've got the items we've got over here. Let's move that over there. This looks slightly different. So what's going on here? Well, first of all, we've got labels showing up. Now you can remove individual items. If I wanted to get rid of label, I can just sort of select in the chart item and say I want to remove that specific item, and it will do that for us. So that's really useful. Another thing you can do is think of it, okay, that legend is really good for us, but let's make it a little bit more customized. So you could either change these, you know, the year-to-date position adjusted. We could easily go up in here and call this Bert. Now it's up to us how we do that, or we can actually create a fake legend. So the last thing I'm going to show you now is creating a fake legend. So what we're going to do is insert a shape on top of our chart. So you can really play around with the color. You've got more control over it. Sometimes you find that the legend works a bit against you. So let's put in something that's a little bit crazy now. That's not quite aligned to however we're going to go into it. And let's put in some text. So what we want to do is we want to have budget. We want to have year to date. And we want to have adverse position, and that's going to be our red, and we want that to be favourable position. So you can see there we've got something that's sort of going along. What we need to do now is put those little boxes on there. How can we do that? So one trick that I use to do that is, what I do is I use a symbol. I will go to Insert Symbol, and what I'm going to do is go to, I'll have a font on there called Webdings. I always forget whether it's Webdings, Wingdings, who knows. Let's find it, hunt it down. So you can see there's a block there. There's also, if you go down a little bit further, there's a really big box, and this is nearly everything on there. So I'm going to use that and do Insert. And so you can see here, what we've got is got a nice little box that looks a bit like those boxes, and I'm just going to sort of copy that one down to all of these other ones, and then I'm just going to change the colour of that specific font to however we want to. So for year to date, our year to date was that dark colour. Oh, sorry. If I actually go to the font colour, if I change the font colour, I think it was that one, wasn't it? The budget was the light one. So what I'm doing is I'm actually sort of faking a budget, and or faking a legend, and that can be really useful sometimes. If you want to put in something a little bit exotic, a lot of the times you'll find that sometimes that you can't change the legend exactly how you want to. So in our case, it was okay. Let's just change budget to something a bit more meaningful, maybe. But you can sort of easily make it creative, like this one. You know, I can't put. You know, can I align these in the center? I can't align these in the center. On this one, I can if I wanted to. I can align it in the center. I could say, for instance, I could put it into something a little bit more like that. You know, you can really change around that legend, make it however you want it to look at, and you're not restricted to those elements. So yeah, you can sort of really play around. So there you can see how you can create it. Let's get rid of that, but that one we don't need. Move it across to here, maybe drag that down a little bit more so it's always in view, and you can see that we've got something that is now looking very similar to our target. Now that's covered up everything I wanted to do. That was a lot, huh? Now you can see that we've tried and played around with a lot of ideas. It's taken us quite a long time to do this, but some of these ideas you'll use, sometimes you won't. It's really to show you some of those techniques that you can use to sort of build up things and think about ideas. Hopefully you'll be able to use this and sort of apply it to your own situation. Now, with that in mind, thanks for watching. That comes to the end of this specific Excel lunch camp that we've got. You've probably finished your latte, you've probably finished your lunch, and you're now onto your dinner. It was so long. But if you do like it, please like it, subscribe, share it. Subscribe, join and get all the new ones that are coming in. We're keeping the production low, shall we say, not budget, let's call it rough, raw. It's a raw presentation that hopefully means that we can just sort of spend 15 minutes talking to you as we would and then post this. So you'll see over the coming weeks probably more and more of these as they build up. But please, thanks for watching. Like it, subscribe it, share it. Okay, I should go that way. It's nice. Go that way. There we go.